Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers have practically built themselves. Hello folks, welcome to Adventures in Family History. Today, well, one of the big things to do with family history is getting the stories from the people that are living, because once they're gone, you can't ask them questions. So you're kind of stuck with whatever they've already written or what they've already said. This has to do with interviewing those who are still alive. Now, we don't think about that too often. I mean, we just go on with our daily lives, but the importance of getting a hold of those people in our family who have, their lives and their memories, and sitting down with them, taking a little bit of time, asking them certain questions and listening to their answers and writing down or recording that information. That information is very, very important, because there may be down the road some answers to some questions that you might have if you're doing a piece on family history. And it may not just have to do with that person, but they may have a remembrance of a certain event that down the road may be important information you will need. So today I'm going to go through a list, and these lists were put together by a place like Ancestry, and I can't remember where the other one comes from, but these are some great questions. You want questions that people can't yes or no. Okay, you don't want yes or no. What did you? No, you don't want. You want to be able to ask things like, tell us about a time that you had, or tell us about a remembrance of, or tell us about the, whatever event. Tell us about how you felt during the, right after 9/11, something like that. So we're going to go through, and there's a lot of questions, actually. You're not going to sit down in one sitting and ask all of these questions. But these are good questions. You can go through them, pick out the ones that, maybe 3 or 4 that are the most relevant to you, to sit down and chat with somebody from whoever you're going to interview, and then set up another appointment another time. These, again, are very important to have, and I wish I had done this with so many different people in my world. Every once in a while I would ask, friends or family that have now passed a question, and I would get some information, but of course I didn't write it down, so I got to go by my memory, which isn't that good. So today we're going to go through that. And then there was a question asked of me by one of my family members. They had asked me about my high school years. They said, what influenced you the most during your high school years? And I'm going to give you an example, because I'm going to tell you the story. If a question like that is asked to you, how are you going to answer it? Well, I'll show you how I answered it. And I'm going to show you in video form how I answer that. Because as I've been reflecting on the 40th anniversary of me graduating from high school, I've had a lot of time to think about, all of that. And when this question was asked, it started with something simple and took me down a bigger rabbit hole, and a lot of information that I had kind of forgotten about. But those memories came back, and now it's something that I can share with my family, my friends, and with you folks. So let's get with it. Adventures in Family History, questions to ask at an interview for a living person. So before we get too far into this, I'm going to give a shout out to a company that is great. If you need some help and you're just not quite sure how to get it all started, Sentimental Story. Mrs. Marietti does a great job helping you organize and get started, and very friendly. So check out her website. So here's some great ideas to prepare yourself to get started. Things like decide who you're gonna interview. That's pretty important. When you talk to one person or a group, are you going to connect on the phone or video? I'm just going to let you folks pause this and to read the rest of these because I don't want an hour-long video. But there's some great expert tips on how to get more information out of a question, dig a little bit deeper. And some of these suggestions are really, really good. So please take a moment, pause it, read it, write some of these ideas down because there's some great ideas. Some of the periods of time you might want to talk about, childhood years, high school years, just a whole bunch of different things. Who were they named after? Some really great ideas of some things to discuss with the person that you want to interview. But again, be prepared. Have the list ready before you go. We're going to talk a little bit about school years here in a few minutes. But these are all really good ideas. Remember, study all of these before you go, but only have a few questions at a time. Your interview is going to want to be 30 minutes to an hour maybe. You don't want to be pushing a whole lot of stuff, trying to get a bunch of questions. You'll have to come back and, work on it some more. So here's another list that I have of, I think it's 68 questions that you can go through and pick out ones that will be relevant to the person that you want to talk to, but some great ideas on how to get some information. These questions are designed to get an answer, not just a yes or no, but an actual answer. And I think you'll find that as you look at these, some will be relevant for some of the people you want to interview, and some will be relevant for others that you want to interview. So today we're going to give you kind of a practice, see how this should work. So I had a family member recently ask a question of me, and I thought of it for a second, and then I started to answer. And the question was, what was your biggest influence in your high school years? And I had to think about that for a minute, but I did come up with this answer. So here I was, my senior year of high school, and the number one influence you can see here is the hair. My sister, who I absolutely adore, 8 years older than me, was dating a very handsome young man that, he had this feathered hair. And so in my teenage years, I wanted to be like him. And so I started to grow my hair and style it with this this feathered look. He drove I want to say it was a 73 or a 74 Ford Maverick with a V8 and a stick shift. I'm not sure if it was a 3-speed or 4-speed. Back then I didn't really know. But it was this brown color. He had the air shocks on the back end. Now, this isn't a picture of the car, but this is very similar to the car that he had. I don't remember the rims that he had on it, but I just remember the back end was lifted, and it had these big tires on the back end. And, I just adored the guy. He also had one of these old Fiberfab Aztec 7s that was in just a little bit better shape than this. It had a Volkswagen engine in it. And I remember when he got it running and working and took me for a little ride in it. It had these gull-wing doors. And I'll always remember that car. It had no guts, but man, it was sure cool looking. So really, he was a big influence on my high school years. Going into high school, I wanted a car of my own. And I had a few dollars in the bank. I had about $500 in the bank. And I found this for $50. A neighbor just a block over had this Cougar. Had been sitting in the driveway for months and months. And I knew the guy, and I asked him if he'd be interested to sell it, and he told me like $500. And then I offered him $50. My dad says, offer him $50, and he took it. So my freshman year, I picked up this 68 Cougar, and it did run. Of course, first thing I did was started doing body work and get some, hijacker air shocks, got some mags on it, put a hood scoop and side pipes, all the really cool stuff that you did in the late 70s and early 80s. Didn't do much to the engine other than I got a manifold, some valve covers, dressed it up really cool. I even had a distributor from Cal Custom, a distributor cap that was clear. Not in this picture, I don't think I ever got a picture of it, but it was clear, and at night you could watch the sparks. It was really pretty darn neat. And of course, my first Holley carburetor, I paid $50 for it, brand new. For whatever reason, I really liked flame jobs, and I knew how to paint models, so I taped off this flame job on my fenders, and I actually really like how it turned out. But this yellow paint is just like Krylon yellow, and the red and the orange is actually model paint sprayed with my airbrush. Yeah, that was my very first flame job on the car. I was really quite proud of it, even though the rest of the car sucked. By the way, that Maverick, every time he would come over to see my sister, this is the exact place he would park, right in front of the house. Kind of ironic. Yes, that Maverick really influenced what I wanted to do as far as building my hot rod car. So this was my junior year, the summer into my junior year, and here was the winter of my junior year. And you see, I had painted the body blue with some sapphire blue spray cans. I can't even remember the name of the brand. Got this hood scoop on it, and actually I really liked the way the car looked. Now, the winter of that year, I picked up this 72 Comet, a couple of $100, and traded some speakers and another little 6-cylinder Comet that I'd picked up, and I had this V8 Comet because, of course, I wanted something that looked like the Maverick, and Comets and Mavericks look very, very similar. So this car I absolutely loved. But I actually got a real paint job with some DuPont Centauri acrylic enamel, and I had this done in the spring of my senior year. So this was kind of the final iteration of how it looked with the N50s on the back end. And the funny thing in this picture, I had just gotten a haircut from my sister, so my hair was actually really short compared to how I had been wearing. And as you can see, those were the biggest influences in my high school years. So here I actually have video of me walking down the stage, getting my diploma, doing a little curtsy, and back into the audience. Yeah, I actually have video of my graduation 40 years ago today. So, hey folks, thank you so much for joining us, and hope you learned something from this. We'll see you again really soon.